What's up, guys? It's Yugi Bros, and before we begin, sorry about the echoing and the different microphone. I'm not in my usual studio, so we're just gonna roll it with it. But today, Konami revealed 6 skill erratas, believe it or not. Some of them are just to make things clearer, and some of them are big differences. So let's get into it, shall we? As always, like and subscribe, and let's get started here. So, starting out, they saying as we quickly approach the release of the midterm box, the first small box expansion for Speed Duels, along with the Speed Duel Tournament Pack 4, they're going to announce 6 skill updates. What's also interesting is that these updates are effective as of today, September 1st. So for YCS Niagara, not only will we be running, obviously, the YCS Niagara Speed Duel list, but they will actually be playing with the erratas, which I find interesting just because they're going to play with 6 erratas before the mass release of these erratas, and I understand the Speed Duel box got pushed back, but still you would think they wouldn't put this into effect until the release of either the Paradox pack or the Tournament pack, wherever these are going to get released. But here it is, nonetheless, so let's get into it. So the first one is Final Draw. The previous text said activate this skill during your main phase. Once per turn during your turn, you may place a counter on this card. If you have 3 or more counters, when you would draw a card, you may search your deck for any card, add it to your hand instead. At the end of the turn, if you use the skill, you lose the duel. So you better make whatever you add count and win the game before the end of your turn hits. The updated text now says, activate this skill during your main phase by placing 3 counters on this card. So we're going to actually counter down as opposed to counter up before. Once per turn during your main phase, you can remove 1 counter from this card. Once, if this card has no counters, the next time you would draw a card or cards, do the following instead. Add 1 card from your deck to your hand, but at the start of the end phase of this turn, you lose the duel. So an interesting note to this card is that now it is the start of the end phase versus the end of the turn. So previously, even when you were in the end phase, you could resolve effects however you would accordingly, and if you were to win before the end of your turn, you wouldn't lose due to Final Draw. However, now, as soon as you hit the end phase, you lose the duel. So I would tell you this card got worse. I haven't seen this card honestly get played, though, so I don't see why they even went about errataing it. I think an updated text would have been sufficient, but now it is slightly worse than it was before. The second one is Nightmare Sonic Blast, and I am very tilted about this, and I'll show you guys why in a second. The previous text said you can only activate this card while you control Serpent Knight Dragon. Once per turn, you can reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. Use one of the following skills depending on the number of monsters revealed. If you've revealed 1, you add 1 of the revealed cards to your hand. 2, destroy 1 card your opponent controls. 3 or more, apply both effects. Then place the rest of the revealed cards on the top of your deck in any order. So this is a lousy deck in general, but it was a really good skill for a really bad card in Serpent Knight Dragon. But here's the updated text. Activate this skill while the only monster you control is Serpent Knight. So previously, you could have Serpent Knight and other cards, but as long as you controlled it, you could use this. Now you have to only control Serpent Knight, otherwise you can't do this. Once per turn, you can reveal the top 4 cards of your deck and do one of the following, based on the number of monsters revealed. Add 1 of the revealed monsters to your hand. Previously, it was revealed cards, so now you only get a monster through this. Destroy 1 face-up card your opponent controls. Previously, it was any card. Now it has to be face-up. 3 plus is both of the above effects in sequence. So right there, both of these took a hit. Instead of adding any card, it now becomes only add a monster. And instead of destroying any card, it now only destroys the face-up card. But that's not even all. We've already seen 3 changes to it. There's another one. Then place the rest of the revealed cards on the bottom of the deck in any order, as opposed to the top. So you could like stack your turn, what you were going to draw the following turn, and then if you were going to use the skill again, you could stack it so that like 2 or 3 of the cards that you stacked would still be part of the same effect. But now you put them at the bottom of the deck. I am okay with the randomization there, but I'm a little tilted just because like it already had 3 changes. Did you need to add that change as well? And in addition to that, you cannot summon or set monsters the turn you activate the skill of Serpent Knight Dragon. Come on, Konami. That is so many changes to a skill that wasn't even seeing play, like competitive play. And I get that they probably nerfed this a bit because, as you can see, Spellproof and there's a few other here in a second that we're going to reveal will definitely nerf down the format. But come on, like this was not going to break any tournaments. There was no way this was going to break any tournaments. And now it's just even more relevant than it was before. So that's Nightmare Sonic Blast. Spellproof Armor. Oh, yes. The previous text for this was activate the skill during your main phase. All machine monsters you control are unaffected by your opponent's spell effects. That's nuts. All machines, guys. All machines. You can normal summon machine normal monsters with one less tribute. That was also nuts. So Alevis Colossalus, which is the strongest thing in Speed Duels at 2300, is a level 6. But it's one less tribute, so you can just normal summon that to the field. If a non-machine monster is in your graveyard, flip the skill over. This skill can only be used once per duel. So by used, they mean you flip it, right? And then this skill is this effect is just live on the field forever. As soon as you hit a non-machine in your grave, you flip this over. It can never be flipped again. But the logic was you would just not play non-machines in your deck. And there's nothing currently in Speed Duels that changes your opponent's graveyard, so that it wouldn't have been like a hard counter to this. This obviously needed to get changed because over time, this just makes any machine deck insane. Like, the normal effect is cool and extra and all. You get an extra 2300 beat stick, but eventually it would have probably got phased out, but you'd still play this because all your machines would be unaffected by spells. It's just a nuts effect to think about. They changed it to this. Activate this skill during your main phase and apply the following. Machine normal monsters you control are unaffected by your opponent's spell, cards, or effects. So just normal monsters now, not everything. Thank God they added that. It needed to be that. I mean, that's kind of what the whole thing. It would have just got way too out of hand, way too fast. And then while you control no monsters, you can normal summon machine normal monsters with one less tribute. So now, if you have a Colossalus, you can't just drop another Colossalus your next turn. You have to have no monsters to normal summon another. And then it says if you have a non-machine monster on your field or graveyard, flip this card over. So now not even just having a non-machine in your grave will flip it over. If you put a non-machine on your field, it'll flip over. So again, another hard counter to this is if you can change the type of something on the field to something else, it will immediately flip it over. Parasite Paranoid comes to mind here because whatever it equips to becomes an insect. If you put like a Jinzo up, for example, when they Parasite Paranoid it, it's now an insect. This skill flips over, and then it's just not up for the rest of the game. So I don't want to say that this skill is dead, but it definitely heavily destroyed what machines could have done with this prior to the errata. I'm okay with this in some respects. I feel like they could have just changed this and that, this top part here, and that would have been it. They wouldn't have had to keep doing anything else. But man, oh man, is this probably, I don't want to say it's dead. Again, we're going to do a lot of playtesting. It's crazy. I actually had some videos that were going up this week, but now they're kind of irrelevant because most of them played these skills. So we're going to have to reevaluate here. But yeah, this is a big hit to Spellproof, and now I can understand why they didn't hit this on the limited list for Speed Duels. Next one is Fusion Party. Previously, the effect is activate the skill during your main phase. You can fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. This skill can only be used once per duel. Now, it is once per duel during your main phase. You can discard one card, then fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material. So the only thing different to this is you have to now discard a card to use its effect. So it's a hit to the Destiny Hero Dragoon deck a bit, and in the future probably other things. However, I feel like in some decks the discard ends up being more relevant, but obviously it will depend on seeing how we're up to do this. But like the first thought is like if you're playing the Dragoon deck and you like discard Mali off of this to then fusion summon, then you have Mali engraved for other plays. Obviously, it didn't need to get like really hurt that much. The skill is already subpar, but it's strong as a one-off. And now having to discard an extra card means you can't just have like the Dragoon, the other Destiny Hero. The Dragoon, the Plasma, and like one other. So if you have like that, and Breaker, and your plan was to like normal Breaker, pop a card, and fusion summon. Now it's like you have to pitch the Breaker to use the fusion summon. It's, it makes it a little bit tougher for you. The next one is Union Combination, and I am so happy that this is on here because when I saw that they didn't really hit XYZ for the YCS Niagara list, I was kind of confused as to why. Like, Union Hangar didn't really make sense to 2 on there. It should have been Scramble to 1 or 2. But here we are. And I wish they gave us these updates around the same time they dropped the Niagara list, because not knowing that this was going to be implemented, obviously it's probably going to shift some people's decks going into Niagara. But it is what it is. The previous text for Union Combination said that activate the skill during your main phase. Once per turn, you can fusion summon 1 light machine fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your grave or field as fusion material. For the rest of the turn, your opponent takes no damage. This, by the way, up here says the materials used are the ones listed on the card you're summoning, and they are banished. So I assume this is an errata. I don't know why this isn't down here with the updated part, but anyways. The updated part to this is once per turn during your main phase, you can place 1 card from your hand on the bottom of your deck, then special summon 1 light machine fusion monster from your extra deck that cannot be fusion summoned, using monsters from your field or graveyard as material, ignoring its summoning conditions. For the rest of the turn, your opponent takes no damage. So now, and I completely understand this instead of what Fusion Party said, which is discard a card, because if you were to discard a card through this, you could pitch like X, Y, or Z, and then fuse them, the discarded one you just used from the graveyard, and that would be insane. So now you have to place a card from your hand at the bottom of your deck. That's like essentially the discard effect here being added to the effect. And then it specifies finally in clear wording that it special summons a light machine fusion monster from your extra deck that cannot be fusion summoned. So you can't do this. You cannot use this card now with like Cyber Twin. I think it was ruled already that you couldn't do it with like Cyber End or Cyber Twin or whatever. I meant to say Cyber End. We don't have Cyber Twin. But now it's clear that you can't do it because the XYZ summons in Speed Duels clearly say they must be special summoned from the extra deck by banishing the above cards you control. Therefore, they cannot be fusion summoned. If you go over to Cyber End, for example, this says a fusion summon of this card can only be done with the above fusion materials, but it can be fusion summoned. Therefore, you can't use this effect to summon them because the only thing it can summon are monsters that cannot be fusion summoned. So it's strictly for, as far as I know, in Speed Duels currently the unions. But so that's a big hit to that. However, I still think this is playable, unlike, you know, this that's probably dead. This that's definitely dead, even though it was already dead. It's more like a Fusion Party hit, where the card is still readily available. It's still very good, but now you have to not only now you have to discard a card, but in this case you have to put it at the bottom of the deck. The last one here is Ritual Ceremony. The previous text to Ritual Ceremony was activate the skill during your main phase. You reveal 1 ritual monster from your hand, then add a ritual spell from your deck to your hand whose name is listed on the ritual monster. This skill can only be used once per duel. This was already actually previously errated. I forget what the change was, but this has been its current text. Now, its new text, however, is once per duel during your main phase, you can reveal 1 ritual monster from your hand, add 1 ritual spell from your deck to your hand whose name is mentioned on that ritual monster. So far we're exactly the same as the other effect. And then place 1 card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. It plays, so it's the same logic once again, and I understand it doesn't say discard, because like if you're playing like Jin, for example, or Sphere Karibo or something like that, you could discard that and then use that as the ritual fodder for your ritual summon. This goes to the bottom of the deck, similar to how a Union Combination will put a card from the hand on the bottom of the deck. So it's just a little bit worse than it was before. It has more of a maintenance cost now, similar to how this does, and similar to how this does. However, none of these are costs, so they're all part of the effect. Granted, skills work differently anyways, but so now they're just slightly more hit. Like I understand this because you'd have to hit Cyber Angel some way. Obviously, they have their own skill, so they'll probably use that more often now. But this was actually being used. Not that it still couldn't be, but it's just it's a minor hit to it. So all 6 updated skills will be available, in the Speed Duel Tournament Pack for later this month. Alright, that clarifies that. I didn't know if it was in the midterm box or not. Remember to play your original copies of these cards as if they have the updated text. Skill cards are what make Speed Duels so unique, blah 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 blah. In the meantime, get ready for Speed Duel GX Midterm Paradox box. And the return of Jaden, Cyrus, Bastion, and of all people, the Paradox Brothers, guys, the Paradox Brothers. I don't know how Gate Guardian's going to be playable, but we'll save that for a different video. But guys, what do you think about these erratas? Do you think they're justified? Do you think they're kind of out of left field and kind of destroy it more than it already was destroyed? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.